Eleanor, age 32, had been engaged to Jonathan, age 38, for the past year. They shared accommodation in his house from his former marriage. He has a 7-year-old autistic son who suffers regular illnesses. The lad requires much extra care and attention. Jonathan received a call from his ex-wife last week from another state around a 6-hour drive away. He informed Eleanor he needed to go assist her since there was some kind of emergency. Although they don't often interact outside of talking about their son's care, Eleanor was shocked nevertheless. She knew that crises arise, so she said okay. That same day, he left, declaring he would most likely return in 2 to 3. He still hasn't returned after 1 week. Every day, Eleanor has been phoning him, and he always says the same. He will be back shortly, and it is taking longer than He never provides to her any specifics regarding what is really happening, though she is here alone looking after his son in the meantime. It's rather difficult. Though Eleanor's not equipped to manage his particular requirement, she still cares about the lad. He experiences meltdowns for which she has no idea how to control. He has been sick with a fever for the past few days, which is frightening since she does not know his medical history. He needs help with simple chores that she's not always sure how to accomplish. Every day, Eleanor's growing more agitated and concerned. Why won't her fiancé inform her about the emergency's nature? Why is he so slow? She's beginning to question whether something else is going on, or whether there is truly an emergency at all. When she asks him straight what the issue is, he responds evasively, saying it's complicated or he'll explain when he gets back. Not sure what to believe, Eleanor thinks he's shielding her from terrible news. But another part of her is dubious that he may be lying about the whole event, since she feels as though something significant has happened. Dealing with his son around the clock wears her out, though this is far more than she signed up for. She loves the boy. She is not his parent, hence she is not suited to be his only caregiver for a long run. She worries she might do something wrong and botch things up. Furthermore, upsetting Eleanor is her fiancé's lack of apparent awareness of how challenging this is. He hardly asks how they're doing when she phones. He has not volunteered to return or forward someone else to assist, like he has forgotten about them. What to do is unknown, though she's at her wit's end. Eleanor can't leave his son alone, though she's scared about overstepping or creating trouble. She's thinking about phoning the parents of her fiancé to see if they might come help if there is a legitimate crisis Jonathan is handling. She also wants not to humiliate him. Am I overreacting? Should I be more patient? Or is this as strange as it feels to me? Eleanor is beginning to doubt their relationship overall. What does it say about his dedication to her and their future if he could simply leave them like this without saying anything? Eleanor would much benefit from any guidance. Has anyone found themselves in a similar circumstance? What action ought she to take? Yes, this exploded overnight. Eleanor appreciates your replies and support overall. She'll try to address some often asked questions. She has tried texting him. Yes, he answers, but in the same evasive manner. No, Eleanor does not have his ex-wife's contact information. She has never run across her. Although his son is in special education, right now school is off for summer vacation. Part-time from home, she has been able to look after him around the clock together for 2 years overall. Her fiancé and Eleanor have for much of that time. She has known his son, yet she has never been left alone with him for more than 1 day before. Many of you add VYSE Eleanor to run a welfare check by phoning the police in his ex-wife's city, though she's thinking about it. Should a family emergency arise, she worries about starting trouble. She believes she should let him have 1 more day to VY to her with a proper justification. If he doesn't, she'll attempt first to call his parents and then think about phoning the police. A few of you have wanted further history on their relationship and his past marriage. Eleanor will relate what she knows. Her fiancé spent 9 years married to his ex-wife. When their kid was 4, they divorced. From what he has told her, their split was much influenced by the burden of raising a child with special needs. Depressed and feeling overwhelmed, his ex-wife battled it. They chose to split even though they first considered counseling, though it wasn't very nasty. The divorce wasn't really neat either. Their differences were mostly related to how their son was cared for. They finally decided on Jonathan VYing main custody. His ex-VY sits 1 week in a month and for 1 week during summer and winter breaks. According to her fiancé, his ex-wife struggles with his requirements even if she loves their son. She agreed to limited custody for this reason. She is usually late, but pays child support. Although her fiancé doesn't enjoy talking about mom, he has noted that since the divorce, she has struggled personally, though he never mentioned specifics. Eleanor sensed he meant mental health or perhaps drug problems. Her fiancé had been divorced roughly a year when they first met. He told her straightforwardly that he had a special needs child and made sure she knew what she was into. Eleanor respects his top focus, his son, as she has always known about it. She enjoys one of his qualities most of all. He is a fantastic, committed father. Their relationship grew really rapidly. Following a year of dating, they moved in together and he proposed 4 months later. Things have been rather decent generally. He treats Eleanor kindly, is diligent, and until now they had few big difficulties adjusting to life, a blended. That's why this situation is so confusing and damaging. Helia VYing them like this and being so quiet are absolutely against. Eleanor kept thinking whether she missed any red flags or indicators along the way. Since many have inquired a few more specifics regarding his son. He is 7 years old, mostly using a tablet software and some simple signs. He speaks when his schedule is thrown off or he becomes overstimulated. He is prone to meltdowns. His many dietary allergies and sensitivity VY ties call for a specific diet. He also has epilepsy, which is largely under control with medication, but still causes sporadic episodes. He physically is tiny for his age and exhibits some motor skill deficits. He needs assistance with restroom use, dressing, and bathing. He wears pull-ups at night and occasionally throughout the day should they be out for a protracted period. During the academic year, he attends a special education program offering speech therapy, occupational therapy, and other VYCES. Usually he needs continuous super VY sound, even at home. He regularly wakes up several times a night and struggles to fall asleep. Eleanor has before assisted in his care, but always with her fiancé at hand. Being totally accountable for him is the first thing she has done, and it is taxing. Doing something incorrectly or neglecting a sign indicating he requires medical attention terrified. Some have VY said Eleanor to ask his therapist or doctor for guidance. That's a good suggestion. She'll probably do that today. She'll compile a list of all his doctors and try to find some direction about the following actions. With her fiancé, Eleanor's not sure, though another part of her feels like this is unforgivable regardless of the cause. Another part of her wants to VY to him the benefit of the doubt. She'll fall asleep on it and decide whether to call the cops or his parents first thing in the morning. Eleanor appreciates once more all of your guidance and encouragement. When she gets additional data, she'll update. Update 1. Though not fantastic news, Eleanor has an update this. She broke down at last and phoned the parents of her fiancé. They knew he was even out of town, but not that. Startled, they drove right over to assist their grandson. Eleanor made the decision to bite the bullet and call the police department in his ex-wife's city to ask for a welfare check while they were en route. The cop Eleanor spoke with indicated they would send someone to her address and was quite sympathetic. About 1 hour later, the cops phoned her back. They claimed to have corresponding contacts with her fiancé and his ex-wife. Both are good. No emergency exists here. Privacy rules prevented the officer from VY-ing additional specifics, but he stressed that there was no proof of any crime threat. Her fiancé called at last as Eleanor was organizing this information with her future in-law. He stated he was going home right away to personally explain everything since he understood she must be angry and perplexed. He had VY set her to wait to make decisions until they could personally discuss things. Not sure what to believe, though Eleanor's glad he's all right. She also becomes enraged and offended with this kind of abandonment. What possible reason could there be? Like Eleanor, his parents are equally perplexed and offended. They have volunteered to stay with them till he returns late tonight. Although Eleanor appreciates their assistance with their grandson, she is dreading the upcoming conversation. Their whole relationship seems to have been brought into doubt. Once they talk, she will update once again. Eleanor appreciates your help during this insane scenario. Update 2. For hours, Eleanor has been looking at her desktop, attempting to come up with the correct words to describe what happened. She promised to let you all know, so here goes. Her hands are shaking as she types this, and she still finds it difficult to believe it's real. Rather than VYing home, as promised last night, her fiancé phoned. Eleanor replied right away, relief flooding her at the sight of his name on her phone. That kind of relief was fleeting. I'm not coming home, he said with a strange calmness. I'm staying here with Sarah, the woman he'd claimed required emergency assistance, his ex-wife. Eleanor thought of herself as VYing being stabbed in the gut. What do you mean you're not coming home? She was able to choke out. What about your son? What about us? He stopped long before speaking once more. We have decided to attempt our marriage once more. Sarah and I, after our past week of reconnecting, both of us believe this to be the appropriate course of action. Eleanor found it difficult to breathe. It cannot be occurring this way. But your son, she said, stuttering, he requires you. He has autism. He depends on consistency and schedule. You cannot just walk away from it. Still another wait. His voice was lower, almost embarrassed as he spoke once again. We have discussed it, and while we are spring our relationship, we believe it would be too challenging to look after a child with such great requirements. For now, we believe you would be best staying with you and my parents. Eyes came upon Eleanor. The man she knew, the committed parent she had grown in love with, would never say something like this, would not forsake his child, particularly one with special needs. Your autistic son is inconvenient for your new life plans. You are Leah VYing him. Eleanor snarled, anger replacing her surprise. Who are you right now? I hardly know you at all. Eleanor wasn't listening while he tried to defend his BHA VY. She told him precisely how disgusted and damaged she felt. She called him a liar, a coward, a horrible father. She informed him she would be letting the authorities know his son had been abandoned. Weakly protesting, "You cannot do that." Eleanor grabbed and hanged up, her head whirling. She sat there startled and quiet for a few minutes. Then she turned behind her and heard a little voice. "Where's Daddy?" Eleanor turned to find her fiancé's son clutching his iPad. Her heart started to break once more. How would she approach explaining this? Eleanor got him back to bed using hazy assurances that Daddy would be home shortly, though she had no other words to say. It felt like a lie. Eleanor phoned her fiancé's parents once he was asleep, REVYing an hour later. They looked perplexed and frightened. Eleanor told them everything and got them seated while she spoke. His father's face grew redder and redder. His mother broke down crying when she finished. His father thundered, "What about his son? That would be too difficult, too challenging. I'll demonstrate the challenge." Tears flooding her face, his mother was shaking her head. "I don't understand," she said repeatedly. "This is not at all like him. More than all, he adores that boy." Most of the evening, they stayed up alternately feeling loss, uncertainty, and rage. By daybreak, they had a strategy. First, they VY cited the police station. When they described the circumstances, the cops were somewhat worried. They stated they would be looking at child abandonment and gathered through statements, every one of them. "We treat cases involve VYing special needs children very seriously," the detective reassured them. "We shall be thoroughly investigating this." They next spoke with a lawyer to go over custody choices. Eleanor didn't have legal rights to his son as her fiancé, and she weren't married. As next of kin, though, his parents might seek emergency custody. The attorney got right on the paperwork. Eleanor's phone was blowing out messages and missed calls from her fiancé all through this. She paid them all little attention. His voice and his justifications made her sick. His folks settled her down at the kitchen table when they arrived home, though they appeared worn out and damaged. Their eyes gleamed with a steely will. "We have made a decision," his father remarked, his voice austere but emotionally charged. Weak, drowning him. Eleanor blinked unexpectedly. "Are you clear that is a major stride?" His mother nodded, blotting away a tear. "We cannot respect what he has done, abandoning his child and lying to all of us. It is unchangeable. Even though he is our kid, we want nothing to do with someone who would do. Our son raised him better than this," his father said. "I know I can't call someone who would abandon their special needs son's son. I'm not sure what's gotten into him." Eleanor nodded, too familiar with their suffering and resentment. "We wanted to also discuss the house and our grandson," his mother said. "We want you to remain here for as long as is necessary. We understand this has been rather shocking, and we want you not to have to worry about where to live on top of all else." Eleanor started to object, but she held a hand to halt her. "Please let us handle this. We know our grandson trusts you, and you have been quite wonderful. If he stays here with you for now, where things are familiar, we believe it would be best. We want him to have as much stability as possible, hence we will take custody." But tears welling up in her eyes made sense, particularly in the middle of their personal suffering. Their generosity was astounding. "Thank you," Eleanor managed to whisper. The following several days passed as a haze of active VY tie. They VY cited social workers, spoke with lawyers extensively, and had many sessions with the kid of her ex-fiancé, attempting to explain what was occurring in words he could grasp. Seeing his uncertainty and anguish was terrible. Not understanding why his dad wasn't returning home, he kept asking for it, though they did their best to console him. How would you explain to a 7-year-old autistic boy his father had left him? Her ex kept text messaging and calling. At last, Eleanor read some of his messages. They combined requests for understanding, apologies, and he said he still loved his son, but felt this was for the best. He mentioned that Sarah and he were intending to start over in another state, saying it would just complicate matters. He urged her not to notify the authorities. Eleanor ignored all of it. Instead, she forwarded every correspondence to the investigator working on the matter. The days stretched into weeks, and they adjusted to a different schedule. Parents of her ex-VY cited daily to assist with their grandson. Knowing how VY Tao routine was to him, they cooperated to keep his calendar as nearly perfect they could. Eleanor put herself into studying all she could on raising an autistic child. She VY sided with his doctors and therapists, joined internet support groups, and read books. Though at times it was overwhelming, she was resolved to do right by this small child who had gone through so much. Through it all, his grandparents were really outstanding. They were there for every minor triumph, every sleepless night, every meltdown. Though Eleanor knew they were still working through their own loss and resentment over their son's BHVY, or they never grumbled. 1 month after everything transpired, one evening Eleanor was sitting on the porch after at last getting her ex's son asleep. His granny came out to sit next to her. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" she questioned softly. Eleanor grumbled and ran a hand over her hair. "I'm managing, though difficult. We are MOVYing." She nodded, stroking her hand. "You are doing a really wonderful job. We really appreciate you staying by our grandson through all of this." Tears were pricking at Eleanor's eyes. She said, "I love him," simply. She could not see walking away no matter how hard it gets. She mumbled a sorrowful grin. That's what it means to be a parent. Overall, it's unfortunate our son found that incomprehensible. They watched the stars emerge in companionable silence. For some time, she finally asked, "Have you heard anything more from him?" Eleanor gave her head a shake. "Not since last week, trying to defend himself. He sent another protracted email. I answered none." She let out a big sigh. "I never thought I would say this about my own child, but now he has to live with the repercussions. He made his choice." Eleanor nodded, caught in a mixture of resentment. "I keep wondering if there were signs I missed, if I should have seen this coming." Somewhat, she put her hand between mine. "Don't treat yourself in such a way. Nobody of us saw this approaching. He tricked every one of us." Sitting there, Eleanor started to consider how much had changed in not too long. 1 month ago, she felt she understood the course of her future. She was planning to start a life with a man she loved, be stepmother to his special needs son, and be married. Future vanished from them now. In place of it was something she never would have thought possible. Along with his parents, she was staying in the house of her ex-fiancé, helping to raise his baby. Therapy VY, sits, meltdown control, and innumerable little problems occupied her days. Though it was not the life she had intended, she discovered as she sat on the porch that it was one she was beginning to adore. This small child had totally captured her heart. Since his own father had left him behind, his grandparents, who had every right to leave this disaster, had accepted her as family instead. Yes, there were times when she wanted to yell at the unfairness of it all, but there was also love and purpose and a sense of belonging she hadn't expected to discover following such betrayal. Regarding her ex-fiancé, Eleanor has heard VY the grape VYNE that he and his ex-wife did in fact relocate outside of state. The cops are still looking at things. His acts probably have legal ramifications, though generally she just hopes he stays away. Part of her hopes he will face justice for what he has done. They are all resolved to show his son the love and stability he requires. He deserves better. Eleanor has no idea what the future presents, though she's precisely where she needs to be right now, helping to care for a small kid deeser VYing of all the love in the world. She's not sure whether she can ever completely understand why her ex did what he did. Eleanor appreciates all of your help over this somewhat challenging period more than you could have ever imagined. Your kind comments and guidance have meant a lot. She wants to concentrate on their new family dynamic and give her ex's son all the care he needs. Hence, she might not update again for some time, but know that your support has truly changed their life. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.